Might as well get started on radio protocols. I think most of us know why we use radios when we're at a burn, whatever our burn is. Most of our burns are spread out over a large amount of land, and it just makes more sense to use a radio. It saves time, it saves energy, it does help to expedite any kind of emergency. And as many of us know, in many of our areas of land, cell phones are just not practical. They don't work. And probably the biggest advantage of having a radio is you don't have to yell. A couple of important things to remember about radio communication. Number one, radio frequencies in the United States are public channels, every one of them. Doesn't matter what frequency you're on. If you're on 50 hertz all the way up to 200 gigahertz, yeah, they do go up that high. It is a public channel, which means anyone, and I mean anyone, can listen to your communication. Even if you are using transmissions that are coded or one way or the other, someone out there is going to be able to listen to your transmission. That's very important to remember. Because no matter what you do, no matter what you say, somebody might be listening. Now, in most cases, that's not the case, but you can never be too careful. But one of the ways that we work is we use standard protocols. We are able to maximize the number of people who can share a radio channel. That's the other issue about radios. Sometimes you may only have one frequency licensed to you. Most burns in our area have at least 4 or 5 channels that we can use for different items, whether it be for rangers, fire, sleep channels, which are very important for the LLC people. But you still have to maximize the use of your channels. Another thing to remember with radios is improper use, anything from power to how you're talking on the radio to frequencies that you're using, can be illegal, can result in a federal investigation. It's another big advantage to make, or a big important note to why we have to be very careful, be very professional about how we work on the radio. So a couple of quick steps about that. Number one, profane language. Don't do it. Just get it out of your vocabulary. I don't care if the F word is a regular part of your regular daily commentary, you cannot say it on a radio, period. When we are in an emergency situation dealing with people, we need to refrain from using names or any personally identifying information. There's many reasons for this. One of the biggest is if it's a medical issue, then it becomes a HIPAA issue. And we don't want to get into having to deal with privacy issues when it comes to medical information. That being said, we need to limit the amount of medical situation discussion over a radio. Again, go back to the part of somebody might be listening. Assume that someone is listening. And if they hear, oh, we've got a heart attack victim, they may be someone outside that calls 911. Oh, they've got a heart attack at this hippie burn that's going on. We don't want that. Other thing is don't use euphemisms. And this is one that is important in our burn, and it may be important in your burn. It's something you as a radio person need to be aware of. Do not notify anyone of the presence of law enforcement. The reason for that primarily is this can be considered aiding and abetting. There are proper times for doing that, but that's not something that you as a regular radio person is going to be aware of or need to report on. Now, the other thing we need to talk about is how to use the radio. I've got my nice mic here, as you can see. I'm distanced about 6 inches away from my microphone and hope you can hear me real well. I'm speaking in a normal voice. I am projecting so that I can get my voice out. couple of things you don't want to do is you don't want to get next to the mic. You'll distort your sound and it will make it very difficult to hear. Be like, couldn't understand a word I said. Don't yell into your microphone. Speak normally, speak concisely, speak slowly. Some of you will have a regular radio that looks something like this. It'll have a clip, many of them, the ones that haven't broken, and it's the same situation. If you're going to talk into your radio, you key your radio up, wait for a moment. Some radios will have a click tone, some won't. But press your key, wait, say 1 second, and make your call. Khaki, khaki, this is Archer. Release your button and wait for the response. Go for khaki. And at that point, you can say, khaki, this is Archer. I have a report of extra bacon being available right now at the food shop, whatever you need to report. Any questions about that so far? I see we have some notes on the chat screen. I should open up the chat screen and look at that. Reminder to mute yourself if you're not speaking. Yes. Good point from Amoeba. Same true for medics. Have to try to find another way to say the cops are turning onto 8th Street if we're using public channels. That's very important. Some of you will have a radio that has a handset with it. Same principle. This is my personal way of doing. I will put it to the side of my mouth and I will press the button at the side of my mouth. There's 2 reasons for that. That way the air's not blowing in when you're talking. You don't want that all the time. Where is everybody? Doesn't work very well. Put your mic to the side. It's a good way to be able to talk again and be heard concisely. A lot of communications words that you can use that are standard use. Again, this may be different at your particular burn, but in most cases, these words are some that just about everyone would use. The word Roger, it's not just a name. It also means I understand, I comprehend your message, and will do as needed. Over, you've heard that one. You don't need to say over and out. You can just say over. It means, okay, I'm done talking. It's your turn. Clear or out. Not only that, I'm done talking and this conversation is now completed. Say again. I use that a lot. I don't understand. Would you please repeat what you said? Say again. Wait one. This is an important one. If someone calls for you and says, and you respond with wait one, that means you cannot answer at the moment. You will respond within 1 minute. It's also important if you hear wait one to not key up. That means that there may be something important going on. Wait until this is cleared before starting a new conversation. All con, everyone, all persons with a radio, please listen. All con, you'll hear this many times, especially in an emergency situation. If someone says they are monitoring, that means they're off duty, but their radio is on and they're monitoring in case they are needed. This is very important for sleep channels, especially for LLC. For many of your leads, they will say they're monitoring. On the other side, it's off-com. I'm turning my radio off now. You won't be able to talk to me. Break is just what it means. I need to interrupt your conversation. Please give me a moment to come in. If it's at the end of a conversation, it means I'm going to take a quick break, but I'm going to pause in case there is someone who has A, emergency traffic, B, needs clarification. And if you hear break, 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 that means there is emergency transmission coming. Please listen carefully. I like what KK posted. This is very important, especially if you're a ham radio operator in the chat session, and that is the alpha, uh, the keys for your letters: Alpha Bravo Charlie, or Alpha Baker, Charlie Delta Echo Foxtrot Golf Hotel India Juliet Kilo Lima Mike Papa, or November Oscar Papa Quebec Romeo Sierra Tango Uniform Victor Whiskey X-Ray Yankee and Zulu. How many of you are amateur radio operators? I know there's a couple. Yep, there we go. I am. Kilo Golf 5 Oscar India Bravo. You'll find, especially if you're a ham radio operator, you already know all of this. You've done it every day, especially if you are working on the radio and you've had your ICS training. And it also, if you're new to transmission, or you're new to amateur radio, learning these tips will also help you whenever you get on the radio. One word that's sure to get anyone's attention is their name, which is why we use the call. We always, when we're calling someone in a radio capacity to burn, we'll say their name or their title twice. Khaki, this is Archer. You hear the word khaki, or you hear the word Archer, or whatever your name is. Jelly Donut, this is Archer. I see he popped his head up real quickly. He noticed, hey, someone's saying something to me right now. You hear that, you know that. It's automatically said, I need to really listen. If they don't respond immediately, you say it again. Jelly Donut, this is Archer. Don't have to say over, that's kind of implied. They will respond, go for Jelly Donut. That's it. That is how you establish communication between individual rangers, individual people, between that's a good point. Fire and medic can get you a surprise starburst at the gate. Yes, you're absolutely right. That's why most of us have different names for our teams, depending on the particular burn that you are at. And you need to familiarize yourself with those terms if you're going to be using a radio at the burn. Make sure you know what is fire in your region, what is medic in your region, what is the name of your ranger lead. Is it khaki? Is it something else? You need to be aware of what you are referring to, so you don't have to refer to, oh, I need fire, I need medic. We don't want to use those terms. Again, emphasize, anyone could be and will be listening to the communications. Let's see, checking real quick. See, we got about 5 more minutes on this one. If you have a burn that has multiple radio frequencies available, and you need to have a conversation with someone else, and you don't really need it on the main channel, use one of the auxiliary channels. Again, make sure that you're familiar with what channels your burn has available on the radio. At Myschevia, channel 1 is our main channel. We use that a lot. Channel 2 is our pyro channel, I think, and it may be sanctuary. I'm getting confused. So we have one for pyro, we have one for sanctuary. We have a couple of sleep channels, and we also have a couple of channels that are not reserved for anyone. Just make sure you are aware of what channels are available. If you need to have a lengthy conversation that doesn't need to be broadcasted to the entire crew, say, khaki, this is Archer, go for khaki, need to talk to you on channel Z about something. Move the conversation over, finish that, go, and go. Now, that's not a good example because khaki is not going to want to leave their frequency, but say you need to talk to LLC or one of the leads about something else. That's where you would go to another channel. Are all Zello channels public as well? I don't believe that's the case, but that I think will be gone over during the Zello segment, which will be coming up after this one. Zello is similar to radio, except this is truly a closed communication. If you're not in that channel, chances are you're not going to be able to hear that communication. But again, that'll be gone over in the next section about that. That's pretty well all that we have on this. If someone is on if someone is going to sleep, they're going to request a sleep channel, and it's mostly your leads, some of your LLC people. Your landowner will have a sleep channel. These are usually monitored in your ranger headquarters. As a regular operator, stay off the sleep channels. Let these folks have a chance to sleep, and we don't want to put them on there. We don't want to put any traffic on there that would wake those people up unless it's a dire emergency. And of course, that's what they're for. We have a dire emergency, the orange vest scenario from the previous situation, then yeah, we're going to wake everybody up that we need to get those people up. A good point from Ginger. Those sleep channels used for people who are on the 12 or 24-hour shifts. Sometimes you just got to have a rest time. So again, remember that. Yes.
Real quick, Archer, what I'd say about that, additionally, he mentioned off-com and on-com earlier. You as a standard operator probably don't need to worry too much about that. You guys are done with your ranger shift. You don't need to announce you're going off-com. You just hand your radio in. The off-com and on-com type thing is usually for people that are on 12 or 24-hour shifts. They're going to nap channel, or they're actually putting their radio up because they're going to have a fun night or whatever. That's what those are for. Don't do that if you're just done with your dirt ranger shift and turning your radio back in, because we don't need to spend 20 minutes of all the rangers going off com and all the rangers coming on com that are coming on shift. Then we lose radio access for 10 minutes every time we did a shift change. We don't need to do that. So
absolutely, that's a very good point. And Patrick, you brought up another point, maybe inadvertently, and that is when you are going on shift with a radio, especially as a ranger or a khaki or one of your leads, it's very important, as it is in the case of just going to a shift, that you be in full control of your faculties. Not being in control of faculties and getting on a radio is not a good mix, especially if, as we said, someone could be listening. I think that's about going to wrap it up for our time. Does anybody else have any questions about radio protocols? Anything? I know most of the people on here are very familiar with it, but is there anything perhaps that we failed to cover?
There was just one thing, Archer, I wanted to remind people of. Sometimes both partners won't have a radio because ones need to be charged. And it's important, after an hour or so to go circle back to check in on a radio. Or maybe like shoulder mics might not be available at the beginning of your shift, and to do a check-in to maybe ease what's going on. I've run into that kind of both situations, and it's, making sure that people have what they need.
Very good. Very good. Most of the birds have their own radios. In most cases, they lease their frequencies. I don't know how everyone does it. If you have any questions, be sure and talk to your communications lead to find out any specifics that we would not normally cover in this particular case. And somebody asked what a khaki is. That's the shift lead for rangers at many of the burns. They do facilitate communications between rangers and other departments. I am primarily a khaki for Myschevia, and have khakied for a couple of other burns too. Okay, thanks to everyone.
Sorry, Archer, yes. One other thought. Sorry, they just keep popping in my head. So sometimes the radio is like really quiet when you're on a dirt shift, no one's talking. I've been a mentor ranger multiple times and often get paired with people who've never used radio. And I'll have them like radio into khaki for either a time check or a weather check, or just say, hey, this is where we're located right now. Can we switch zones when there's like nothing going on, just to get them comfortable using the radio, but not necessarily in an emergency situation.
Absolutely. That's a very good point. And especially when you're talking about your late night or early morning shifts, it also is a good way to make sure that your rangers and other persons who are working with the radio are still alert. And also, as you said, it's a good way to practice good radio protocols. Any other thoughts?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And that the radio's working. Good point.
Hey, Archie, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I had a quick question about with a smaller burn where we've tried to use multi-channels. Hasn't worked all that well. People tend to, drop back to the main channel all the time, and they're not able to monitor two channels at the same time. Do you have any advice on managing multi-channels and whether or not you use channel scanners for dispatch?
I personally have not gone with any kind of a channel scanner. Sometimes as a khaki, if I know I need to monitor more than one frequency, I'll just pick up a second radio and tune it to that. But most times it's not necessary. As far as making sure that your people, move off of the main frequency, it's just maybe a gentle prodding. Maybe make that something that your ranger lead uses as a gentle prod. And if he hears a conversation, say, hey, would you mind moving over to another channel? Move over to channel 3. I believe it's open right now for that conversation. It's just a matter of making sure that everyone is understanding and trained in what needs to be happening in that particular case. Does that help?
It does help. And I guess one comment about moving channels for that private conversation, I tended to use, hey, go to my sleep channel. And those people who know what my sleep channel is can do that. And not everybody else is bumping up there to eavesdrop.
Additionally, what I'd say is make sure your channel distribution makes sense. Because, for a smaller burn, you probably only need one safety channel, right? But you might want side ops or DPW, whatever the heck you call it, on another channel. You might want your gate staff on another channel. Make sure it makes sense, because if you find everybody glomming onto one channel, you probably don't quite have the right division of channels going on. And so, think about how the channels are divided, and maybe redivide them into something that makes more logical sense.
Yeah, seconded. It's going to be very event specific about how your channels get split up. Our gate and parking area is physically separated from the event site. So gate and parking have their own radio channel, but they know to switch back to the repeater on channel 1 if they need to get somebody else at the actual event site. So they get to have their conversations on their private channel without bothering everyone else. And to a fair extent, that's a size of event thing. If you're only a 250 or 300 person event, you probably don't have as much traffic as an 1,800 person event or a 5,000 person event.